Ladies and gentlemen, a really interesting thing is taking place. President Trump is reshaping the Republican Party. He is transforming it away from the Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld never-ending counterinsurgency conflict, Lincoln Project type of political party. Those people now vote alongside Bernie Sanders and AOC. That should tell you something about the Democratic Party. He wants people, he in a way stated, hey, don't vote in 2022 if candidates aren't going to address reforms in Arizona, Georgia, and elsewhere. Now, Democrats, even if they didn't believe the hoax and the fabricated myth that they perpetuated, walked in lockstep. Oh my God, the indignation that Trump would let Comey go because he was being investigated for working alongside Putin. And how do we know? Well, we know because the Steele dossier told us. Oh, by the way, it was purchased by Clinton, and now 2 attorneys got indicted. Or no, yeah, one at the FBI who pled guilty, and then one at a Clinton-linked law firm. And the Durham probe now is a special counsel. And the Mueller probe found absolutely nothing. So the United States intelligence community and all the good, morally superior liberals who felt that Trump worked with Russia were wrong. They did the same thing to Bernie Sanders. They tried to do something similar in a way to Tulsi Gabbard. And so anything that harms Democrats in any way is a Russian plot. This is the mindless, completely irrational propaganda spin. Anyway, they were fine with that. Now, President Trump, in his own way, is addressing an issue that Liz Cheney, even though she alongside Kinzinger, voted alongside Trump 90% of the time, over 90% of the time, according to 538, Cheney, Kinzinger, Never Trumpers, they don't want to address issues pertaining to reforms. We'll just say pertaining to 2022 and 2024 that were, by the way, upheld by the Supreme Court. Supreme Court upholds Arizona voting rules. Politico, Supreme Court sides with Arizona on restrictions. And there are other articles as well. Joe Biden, Merrick Garland set themselves up for disaster in Georgia voting rights case. With its decision Thursday in a voting rights case of Brnovich versus the Democratic National Committee, the court closed its term with a decision that will resonate not just legally but politically for years to come. In a 6-3 decision upheld, the 6-3 decision upheld Arizona's new voting rules over claims of discrimination. And they essentially upheld Georgia's reforms as well. And so you have a situation where President Trump is actually gaining a political victory with a tremendous victory with the Supreme Court ruling. I'm not even going to talk about, if Democrats or media want to say, well, there was nothing, it was pristine, that's fine. I agree. There was nothing wrong last year. It was 100% pristine. I agree. Nonetheless, there's something called integrity. And Democrats do not care about the rights, especially of their constituents, at all. Number one, they're doing it for political gain. Just like when they pushed to end all economic activity last year, that's why we're going to have a stock market crash. By the way, hit subscribe to this channel. Hit subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel. I have a segment on the velocity of money, crawling at a snail's pace now, descending to where a snail or a turtle, as fast as a snail or a turtle, it's basically the velocity of money, if you look at the Fed charts, has completely crashed. We'll talk about that. And there's going to be a stock market crash for a number of reasons. Usually, that would that would mean inflation isn't rampant, but we have the velocity of money at an all-time low, yet inflation that's rampant. GDP being revised downwards. We're heading towards a stock market crash. Hit subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel. Read my Federalist article on the upcoming stock market crash below. It's in the pinned comment. If you want to support my work, my Patreon is in the pinned comment, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to give a super thanks to this segment, that's below and right next to the like and the share buttons. Be on this channel tonight at 8 p.m. Pacific. So 8 p.m. Pacific tonight, I will have a live stream, ladies and gentlemen. So be on this channel, 8 p.m. Pacific time tonight. We have the best late evening live streams in all of YouTube. But he's telling people not to vote. President Trump. Donald Trump's supporters baffled and divided over his claim that Republicans won't vote in 2022 or 2024. Oh my God, they're baffled. Why would he say this? This is the way media works. They pretend to be clueless. And they don't even comprehend why anyone, like 73 million Americans, they have no understanding, nor do they want to understand, nor can they fathom why anyone would vote for Trump after they spread lies about Trump-Russia for 4 years. They can't even imagine why anyone would be so horrible and, just misguided to vote for a man who won't trust the results of our democracy. They did the same thing for 4 years. And they touched themselves in ecstasy with every absurd, nonsensical, irrational, fake, and phony story about Trump-Russia. Then, now they're indignant over Trump's claims, and Republicans' claims, and the claims of Rand Paul and Ron Johnson and others, Peter Navarro and others. So, you see that they really don't care. There were months of $1 to $2 billion plus in property damage, 25 lives lost, but there's a January panel. They haven't indicted Trump on anything or charged him on anything. They never will, because he never committed a crime. And what all they're obsessed with is simply leveling as many accusations and investigations towards Trump. Well, that time is going to end in 2022. Republicans will take over the House. And especially, we'll have a stock market crash by that time. So it could be a record-breaking takeover of the House. But what Trump is trying to say, and it won't affect the outcome because Republicans are still going to take over the House. What he's saying is, if you're a candidate and you don't address, so Donald Trump said his supporters would not vote in future elections unless GOP backed, his absurd claims. On social media, his supporters are divided over whether to follow his advice. Oh, they're divided. One wrote, Donald Trump is doing everything he can to hurt Republican chances. The Republican Party is Donald Trump. And I say this as a lifelong Democrat, and I used to be the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post, and the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. I became a supporter of President Trump because I wanted record low unemployment, or I appreciated the economy working very well, and I wanted the Doha Agreement, and I wanted somebody who presided over the Abraham Accords. In terms of foreign policy and economic policy, he's a million times better than both Biden and President Obama, who both destroyed Libya. And we can go on with everything they did in terms of failed policies. And so, you can look at energy prices now, they're soaring. Maybe it had to do with Biden focusing on climate change policies when we had an economy that's barely functioning. Gee, maybe that's why. But what he's trying to say, people, is if you're a candidate, you better take into account what's important to the majority of the 73 million Americans who voted for Trump. You have to understand, they simply don't think that Trump voters exist. The New York Times reports on late night every day. Okay? This is the New York Times. Late night isn't buying Trump's latest stunt. Why would they? Who cares what late night? Could you imagine a debate with Seth Meyers or Jimmy Kimmel about the atrocities taking place right now, the absolute atrocities taking place, without any indignation or outrage from AOC and others at the border? Could you imagine a debate with Seth Meyers or Jimmy Kimmel or John Oliver or Trevor Noah or Stephen Colbert about why those 13 Americans lost their lives and 169 Afghans who lost their lives? Why Biden utilized, we'll call them the T-ban, as security outside the airport? Those 13 Americans and 169 Afghans should be alive today. They lost their lives directly because of Biden, mashed potato brains, and bumbling Blinken, and Milley. Why on earth would you give names of Americans and Afghans and allow the T-ban to serve as security outside of an airport, where you funneled over 120,000 people in one location, and you're utilizing our mortal adversary and enemy to help us? And the entire reason for the Doha Agreement is to get away from that country because of that very organization who Biden used to help us evacuate, quote unquote. And so, could you imagine getting into a debate in late night regarding those issues? Because those issues aren't, there's no way for their indignation to, to ignore the reality of those failures. But you can just look at Trump's claims pertaining to last year as what Democrats did for 4 years and continue to do. They still think he worked with Russia, which was, of course, a lie. The biggest lie of all. They say Trump and the big lie. The biggest lie is Trump-Russia. And the greatest imbeciles on the planet actually believed that Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump's campaign worked alongside one another. When you look at the uranium sale, and uranium commodities are an all-time high, we can go on forever. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Be on this channel tonight at 8 p.m. Pacific time. Subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel. It's below in the pinned comment. Read my Federalist article. If you want to support my work long-term, my Patreon is below. Your support is greatly appreciated. You want to give a super thanks to this channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. Tell your friends about that. We're almost at 185,000 subs. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you later tonight, this evening. And he's not telling people, he's telling people not to vote, essentially, but he knows very well it's a message to the candidates. Media is completely flabbergasted. Can't believe what's going on. Of course, this is an act. Media knows exactly what Trump is doing. The lie by omission. Media for the past, since 2016, has lied endlessly by omission, infinitely more than Trump has lied. The greatest liars of our generation are the journalists and publications that have spread a myth called Trump Russia, and other myths also. Trump's tax returns, his involvement in January. They haven't indicted or charged him, so none of their claims are accurate, or almost none of their claims are accurate. The major claims are completely fabricated. They got people on process crimes around him because they wanted public relations victories, but they couldn't indict Trump. They want Trump out of politics. He's getting stronger, just like they want a Green New Deal, or they want to decarbonize the planet, and now we're more reliant on fossil fuels. Everything they want, they do they engage in behavior that leads to the opposite outcome. Fossil fuels are now in greater demand because of their obsession and their apoplectic reaction or obsession to implementing climate change policies at the very moment we should focus on economic growth. I agree, actually, with Democrats and the left, and I agree with them that climate change is a very important issue, okay? But you don't You don't focus on that when you're trying to rebound the economy after you've pumped $10 trillion and consumer sentiment is at an all-time low and the economy is being revised in terms of gross domestic product downwards and we have labor shortages and supply chain shortages because of your policies. Democrats and media are like, oh, well, this is just commodity price is global. Oil is a global price, No, your policies, fracking, for example, you made it more difficult. That's why natural gas is more expensive in the U.S. and even more so, 5 times as expensive in Europe and double the price in the U.S. When we have a stock market crash, just like the absolute debacle in Afghanistan, which, by the way, the Doha Agreement was why I voted for Trump. I want us out of Lincoln Project endless wars. But the manner in which Biden utilizing our adversaries to help us, this is, completely absurd. But then again, they don't care as long as it's not Trump. Trump himself has broken their spirits and their will. You have lifelong friends who disown their friends or who can't speak to their friends because they voted for Trump. And meanwhile, you have atrocities taking place right now under the watch of Democrats in numerous areas of the world and in this country. And the morally superior imbeciles who wouldn't talk to their friends because of Trump's meanness now are presiding over a more chaotic world full of events and atrocities that are even far worse than what took place during President Trump's administration. And we had a functioning world and economy under President Trump. The media melted down. We had record low unemployment, fact. We had hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs, fact, which, by the way, the National Association of Manufacturers opposes the infrastructure bill, says it'll lead to 1 million jobs lost. That's a fact also. Well, we had a great foreign policy, fact. Now we have an administration presiding over an impending stock market crash. And let's not even get into the derivatives nightmare that I talk about in the Federalist. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. Thank you so very much. Be here tonight at 8 p.m. Pacific. Thanks, everybody.